Hey my friends, Lance here, bestkidsolutions.com. Interestingly enough, one of my most watched videos is why kids should have phones. Now there's a lot of pros and cons of kids having phones, but this was the pro version, and I also made a cons version as well. But I got to thinking, so many people are watching this video that I wanted to give you guys a brief synopsis of some of the ways that we can make having a phone much more safe for children. Now, so many times as I wrapped up in this particular video about why kids should have phones, we talked a lot about responsibility and safety and the safety of the child, especially when they get a little bit older and they're going to different practices and meets and things of that nature. Being able to, the child to be able to talk to the parent right away, or vice versa, the parent being able to talk to the child right away when things have changed and things of that nature, it really does make a big difference. But there's also a lot of cons too, in the sense that we have to really be careful of screen time. I think that there's a lot of more information that we need to talk about dopamine and the pleasure sensors in the brain and how kids can get addicted to seeing these, scrolling through these reward systems where they scroll and it's a bad video, it's a bad video, it's a bad video, oh, it's a good video, and it almost becomes a gambling scenario. So we have to be careful when giving these children the technology. But it's also very safe if you do it correctly, and this is why I'm making this video. So this is a brief synopsis of the different technologies that you can use to help make communication with your child so much easier, so much safer, and so much better. Now, the very first one is a very simple process. It is just getting your child a flip phone. Now, they're probably cringing right now. Everybody's cringing, especially the children. But this is a easy and a perfect opportunity to give them the nuts and bolts of communication. They're able to call their parents in an emergency or when things go in a bad direction. And you really have to just understand that this is going to be for communication purposes. There's no, some of the benefits of regular phones is that, they can use the technologies of Google and these search engines to help with homework and listen to and watch videos and watch beneficial YouTube videos. But at the same time, that can lead to misuse if they're not being responsible. This way, there's nothing on the table at all. It is just literally a phone. You can remember back in the day, I had a sweet Razr, Motorola Razr. I thought I was the man. But can you imagine texting like that now? Like literally going through the letters? It's really not going to be anything that is going to be something that they are going to enjoy. But for you, it is going to be something where you can communicate with them, they can communicate with you, and all is well. Now, one of the problems with having a flip phone is, of course, that you can't track them. One of the great things about having a regular smartphone is you're able to use the GPS feature on the phone to be able to track your child at any time. And that's a really nice feature to have, just to make sure that you know that they're getting off the bus or they're already at home, or whatever the case may be. That feature doesn't exist with the straight phone, obviously. An alternative is you can use some of these different Apple products or Samsung products, the smart tags, the air tags. You can put them in their book bag. And this can also allow you to kind of get an idea of where they're going. Now, the problem is that Apple itself hasn't said that they necessarily recommend you using them to track your child. And nobody's quite sure whether that's an ethical situation or if that's just a technology situation. Nobody's quite sure. But the reviews that I've read states that's not a play-by-play situation. It updates every anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes. The way it works is that it sends a Bluetooth ping to different phones around them, whether they're on their network or not. It's just phones in general. It sends back the information, and it really depends on how many phones are around, how dense of an urban or just population you are in general. Well, there's a lot of people that have phones, so it's not perfect, but it's possible. And so one of the next options, and that's what I was getting to before with the Apple scenario, is that they didn't recommend using the AirTags, but what they did recommend was using their watch. Now, obviously, that makes sense for Apple to do so because the AirPod is 60, 70 bucks and the Apple Watch is $300 or $400 ish, depending on the scenario. I'm sure it could be cheaper or more expensive, but the case may be is that's the second option, is a watch. Now, the beauty of a watch is it does something very similar. You can talk on this watch. You can text on the watch. Many times it's voice activated. Now, in order for it to work anywhere, you're going to need to make sure that you actually have a plan. You're going to have to pay the $10 a month to $20 a month, depending on your carrier, to have it on an actual plan so that you can get the GPS location. You can talk to them anywhere. They can text you anywhere. There's little different games and they can take pictures and videos. So it's kind of fun, but it's really not something that they're going to get on Google or YouTube or on this little device. But it kind of takes care of checks all the boxes for the most part. It allows you to be able to communicate with your child. They're able to talk to you as well. You're able to see where they are because it has a GPS locator on the phone, or on the watch itself, and it really is a win-win. Now, the only downfall that I could see of this is that they're usually pretty bulky, and for their little wrists, it can be uncomfortable. They're not quite used to it. You don't necessarily need to buy an Apple Watch. They have kid versions of this, and so you can find and look at some of these kids versions of the watch, and that can be very helpful. Now, if they can't handle the fact that there's a flip phone and you like the GPS version or the option for that, and the watch is a little too bulky, or they just can't quite get to wear it, you can opt for a regular cell phone. And there are a lot of good options. Now, obviously, the benefit of a cell phone is, of course, that number one, it's very cool. Number two, that they have a lot of different options on there, different apps and different games. And if you are able to monitor that and the child is responsible enough, they can use these technologies and apps for betterment of themselves, for the betterment for homework and certain situations. Now, some kids aren't quite ready for that, and that's okay. And they actually make phones that allow you to just have a similar scenario as the flip phone, where it's just the cameras, you have a couple different, like anywhere between 14 and 15 safe apps that they've downloaded on the phone already. These are obviously not kid versions, or they're not the normal Samsung or the Apple. These are something that are made for kids, and you guys can do a little bit of research on that. You just type in kids phones, and there's just a list of different opportunities for you to go after. We can make a whole nother video on that, and comment down below if you'd like me to make some more detailed information about some of these watches or phones, or what's the best flip phone for your child, because that's a whole nother video. So go ahead and leave me a comment if you'd like me to do that, or other suggestions that you would like me to make within these videos, because we really are dedicated to what we believe are the most important people on this planet, which are kids, parents, and teachers. So getting back to the regular phones, you can have pretty much this option. It kind of saves space for the child because they're not carrying around the old school Razr flip phone, and it looks like a phone. It obviously looks like it is a smartphone. It has 15 safe apps on it. There's different opportunities that you can put on there. Obviously, customizable ringtones and all the cool things that you get with a regular phone. But there's no Google, there's no Chrome, there's no Safari, there's no YouTube. There's none of these social media apps or other chatting apps that really are the danger of having these phones, because the number one problem that we have with a phone is that the children start getting on social media. they start getting on these chatting apps, and you don't know who's chatting with them, and it can become very difficult and scary when you don't know who's talking to your child. That's why it's better not to have these apps on the phone anyway. Having one of these phones creates a great choice in that matter. If you were to give them a regular phone, you would have to probably use some sort of software. There's many different softwares that you can put on a phone that will negate the possibility that the child can use some of these features, such as YouTube, any chatting app, app or game. You can limit the screen time. So adding a software to the regular phone, if you are interested in getting them a regular phone, is definitely a viable option. Now, a lot of times parents will use an old phone of theirs, and that's why this is such a nice option, is because you really do want to maximize the situation where you are giving them an older phone, because they are still learning responsibility. They could lose it, they could break it, they could drop it, things of these natures. And you really want to make sure that this is a starter phone. So giving them an old phone, putting on the app and technology restricting software on these phones really is a viable option and is a possibility. Now, you'll have to look into it, because typically the good ones are a fee-based system. You're going to be charged $6 to $7 a month-ish for these type of services. So you'll have to look and see, over the long run, is it better just to have a phone that doesn't have these capabilities, that doesn't have the app store on the phone so they can just add it on themselves? That's not a possibility. And just buying a phone of that nature until they've earned the trust and the respect to be able to do something like that? Or is it better just to use your old phone, and of course it's free, and pay that fee? Obviously, it depends on your situation. And really, this is a situation where it's really what's best for you and your child, because there's such a large spectrum between children and what they are able to be responsible for. I'm a big believer in being able to earn it. If they've earned it, then they should be able to not give an opportunity to give it a try. And this is something that is a big responsibility. It really is. And so this is something that hopefully you've worked with your child, and you've built up this responsibility tract where they're taking care of things, and using certain technologies and having certain important things that they're taking care of, so they realize the value of taking care of it, so that once they get to a phone or something that's a little bit more expensive, they've had that opportunity, they've had those skills, and they can scaffold upon that to make the phone an easy transition to being able to communicate with their parents, but at the same time they're responsible enough to make sure they put it in the backpack, they recharge it. And these are all some of the great things that come with having a phone, is it gets to the point where you are able to teach them to a higher point about responsibility. And that was one of the things that I mentioned in the other video, is that having these phones and technologies you're able to teach them responsibility. They really want to have it, so it's a motivator for them. And it's also, it's a devastating for them when they forget to charge it and it doesn't work. And it's a scenario where it's a natural consequence, and they learn from those scenarios. So I hope that this was helpful. I would love if you found this video helpful to give this a big thumbs up. That helps it spread around. We really do want to help, the most people that we can. Please do me a favor and subscribe if you are into, information about bettering parents, teachers, and of course, our children. This is a great opportunity to get on board. We make videos as much as possible. It's difficult. I'm an award-winning educator. I have 2 beautiful daughters of my own. We are active and messing around and playing around, and it's hard to teach and parent while trying to record and talk about teaching and parenting. And so it just happens when it happens, but we really try to make sure that we give you the best information that we can. and we'll get it out to you as best as possible. So if you're interested in seeing that kind of stuff, please go ahead and subscribe. As I mentioned, I hope that this is helpful for you. To a little recap, flip phones with the possible air tracker or smart tracker is a possibility. Smart watches are a possibility if that works for you. And then, of course, a regular phone with a parental app restrictor software on there, or you can get a specific child phone that will allow them to pretty much strip everything, and that allows them to have the responsibility and the communication, the safety of the phone without all the drama of social media and the chatting apps. So my friends, I hope all is well. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.